So we have been doing a series on software development and the software development lifecycle, and we are very fortunate to have another guest join us today. And that guest is Michael Richardson. He is the managing director of Tech-Azur. Very unique organization, but I'm going to sort of not take Michael's thunder because I think he's got a very unique approach, and their organization is very unique in terms of working in this software development arena. But at any rate, I'll pause there for a minute. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
So now that I've actually kind of built up the anticipation a bit, Michael, what can you tell us about Tech-Azur and really the core business?
Okay. Well, I established TechAzur a few years ago as an executive advisory consultancy because after working for a number of years as CTO and technology leader in a series of individual companies, what I came to realize was that the part that I really enjoy the most is the business transformation, alignment of business with technology, and helping the technology empower the business at all levels. I had been in a variety of roles that really centered around helping organizations move from one plateau to the next in terms of being able to put technology to work in practical form, cost effectively, and with competitive advantage. So for me, it was a natural to transition from sort of working with one company at a time to establishing TechAzur as an ability to engage with multiple clients simultaneously and help each of those clients with their unique needs, the common thread being that it's time for growth, it's time for alignment of business with technology, and putting technology to work in practical terms at scale and in all of its emerging forms. So many of the organizations that I worked with had built over time legacy systems, had invested tremendous amounts in technology over the years, and were facing that turning point of trying to decide how to bridge that gap, how to move the technology originally to the web, then subsequently to mobile, now to the cloud, and to intelligent devices of all kinds, up and down the value chain,
Mm.
in the supply chain, or in the retail environment for consumers, and so forth. And so, as I built out this consultancy, what I needed to do was engage what I call a collective of trusted partners, people that I could work with that I knew and trusted, that had specializations in different areas. So the collective that I've put together today is a global network of trusted partners that includes organizations like CoreValues, who provide excellent service, who provide deep expertise, and who can connect together to form a solution team in very short order, very cost effectively for my clients.
You know, it's really I'm really fascinated by what you have established and what you've built out, but also the way in which you're leveraging the ability to scale based upon the different unique needs for different organizations, especially crossing multiple domains and also specific business units within those domains. So I would have to believe that you see a lot of different dynamics, especially given the fact that you're taking organizations from these legacy architectures and legacy systems to the new technologies, and many of these organizations are in a desperate need to actually have to do that and do that very rapidly, just to stay in business and just to stay competitive. Is that something that you're seeing out there?
Yes, in fact, if you look across the range of clients that I work with, they vary from startups in the e-commerce space to established SaaS organizations in financial services to leaders in the green tech arena. And again, whether they be small organizations that are building their legacy for the first time in the cloud with current tools, or they're an established organization with thousands of clients providing millions of transactions and need to be able to essentially swap out the engines on the airplane in flight.
Hmm.
The common thread tends to be uh, time urgency, competitive advantage, and process efficiency, the ability to really bring the business and the technology together. And so a big piece of what I provide in my advisory services is really helping join business and technology, helping all sides, all stakeholders in the business understand that it's more about transforming to become an agile business. We talk a lot in the software field about agile as an SDLC. And certainly at the development community layer, there's a tremendous amount of devotion to the dogma of agile software development and the terms and the tools. We hear a lot about that. There's a lot published. There's a lot of conferences and so forth. I think the most powerful iteration of the agile concept is to bring it up to the business level. From the CEO on down, we're running an agile business that features agile software development, but recognizes that the real power of agile, as the name implies, the ability to respond to changing needs all up and down the value chain, not just within the software development arena.
You said a couple of things there. I'm just kind of curious about your thoughts on this. Is it a fair statement that I think in today's business climate, that if you don't employ an agile business model, leveraging an agile technology or SDL process to support that business, you really don't have a business?
I think that might be an oversimplification, but I think the reality is that the successful businesses, the segment leaders that are really advantaged by their use of technology, are by and large the ones that have adopted agile business at one level or another. And I think the hallmark of competitive differentiation, profitability, and attractiveness from the investment community perspective will definitely be those organizations that have adopted and embraced agile business, not just agile as an SDLC. I think you see that emerging more and more if you look across the portfolio of successful tech companies. It's most obvious in those arenas, but there are other business service organizations, B2C organizations that embody this notion of agile business, and that really drives their success. And it's incredibly difficult to compete with an agile business. If you are an agile business, it's much more straightforward to own that segment. And so when I work with my clients, very often they aspire to those kinds of advantages, but don't really know how to get there from here.
I was going to ask you that question next. How do you? I would love to take some time at another juncture to just talk about what an agile business is all about, leveraging technology, because I think that's a whole nother discussion. But our focus here is really on the whole distributed development process and software development lifecycle. To that point, how do you get organizations that have worked off of these traditional, and I guess it's the waterfall approach, now kind of bringing them up into an agile approach, but more importantly, now getting them into this distributed agile approach? I mean, what are the steps in order to kind of get them there, and how do you walk them through that process?
That's a very fair question, and I think that's an area, that transitional zone is perhaps the most difficult time in a company's existence in the last 5 to 10 years. I've seen many organizations attempt that transformation and fail. Others that have succeeded have gone on to grow and profit and benefit. I think there are several steps, but the most important is recognition that the old methodology, the so-called tried and true of waterfall, simply no longer works. It doesn't really apply to any growth-oriented business. I think there are organizations that cling to that out of tradition, and those organizations are rapidly becoming outmoded. So what I tend to do is help bring the stakeholders together, the business stakeholders with the technology organization, help them understand that first we need to grapple with the problem of dispelling the belief system that waterfall was based on. The concept of waterfall uh, really stems from the idea that we'll be able to painstakingly document a set of requirements and predict the future need of a whole market far enough in advance and in enough detail that by the time we can deliver that described in these documents, people will still want it and it will still be competitive. And there was a time when that was true, but that time was 20 years ago.
Right.
That time is no longer. So now, the challenge in my work is often helping members of the organization, helping stakeholders release the desire to cling to that sense of stability and embrace the chaos, embrace the rate of change, and become change agents in their own right for their piece of the business. Once they feel empowered and recognize, wait a minute, I can go from a world where if I didn't get into the document, I'm never going to see that feature, to now, as we realize what this market needs, because we're talking to the market, we're showing them things, we're getting there faster, we can modify in flight and improve our product in relative real time. That's powerful. That empowers the business. The business can now recognize the reason why the developers are so excited about this thing called Agile.
Hmm.
And on the tech side, it becomes much more straightforward to clip on new technologies. So as emerging tools and methods uh, become available, it's much more straightforward for the technology organization to introduce those empowering technologies to the business, because it's not based on some plan from 18 months ago. It's based on the sprints that we're in right now. And it's finally to address, how does it go from local within the building to global? Uh, it's a very natural extension. From my perspective, thinking of Agile religiously, the dogma of you can only execute Agile properly if everybody's literally in the same space and they can literally write on the Scrum board and so forth together, is, I think, a very, very uh, self-limiting view. I think you have to open your mind as a developer as well as a business stakeholder and recognize that it's more about communications between people, relationships between people, and a shared knowledge of the what. So the what being, what are we setting about to deliver, and the how of delivering it can then become more distributed, can virtualize. Just like we can host our application in the cloud, we can execute our agile methodology virtually with our virtual team. Not because they're nameless, faceless people on the other side of the globe that read this big, thick document that we spent 3 months writing, and as long as they
And you're
adhere
so
to,
proud of it too, right?
oh, absolutely. This methodology isn't important, and I think it's an empowering change for business. So making that move and making it global, I think, are one and the same. And I've really had excellent experience with CoreValue as a partner in my collective on the globalization of Agile for software development in that motif with multiple clients.
So how do you integrate a the various partners that you're utilizing, and let's talk specifically about CoreValue in this particular case, then also marry that up with an organization that you are bringing along in these new development approaches, not to mention introducing them to a distributed global agile process. What's the process in which you go about integrating those teams, because you're going from a traditional waterfall approach where they've got these elongated cycles now to literally real time activity, right? And also leveraging a global team and a global partner. How do you get them to that point, leveraging a partner like CoreValue?
Well, therein lies the art, right? The ability to understand and address the needs of the business and bring the business stakeholders together with technology is the starting point for my advisory services. And the ability to build out this global collective of trusted partners allows me to follow through on the promise. So I don't just come in and describe what could be, paint a rosy picture, give you a plan, and now, go with God, you figure it out. I'm there as a mentor and facilitator for the stakeholders to actually execute on the plan and bring products to market. So for me, having brought in my very long-term colleagues from CoreValue into my collective was a natural thing and something that I rely on heavily as a component of my process in helping my clients through their business transformation. So order of events tends to be, let's work with the business, let's start to understand and embrace the concepts of running an agile business wherein technology and business are aligned perfectly, and let's introduce into that a trusted partner, CoreValue in this case in our discussion, that can help augment and role model, if you will, a very effective way, a very pragmatic way of embracing global software development through the global agile process. I can do that because I know and trust my colleagues at CoreValue, and so I can bring this as a trusted partner to my clients. And beyond that, they're well prepared to accept that kind of engagement and participate in that motif. So CoreValue has done a good job of organizing themselves around this approach, organizing themselves and structuring their infrastructure properly to be able to support global agile processes effectively right out of the chute from day one.
Um, so, given the extensive amount of work and the types of projects that you're engaged with, as well as bringing organizations along in this new approach, what are some immediate benefits and also efficiencies that they share with you that they're realizing as utilizing this shift in mindset?
Well, I think a very early on benefit for my clients is the ability to step from concept to reality much more quickly, being able to take components of their product roadmap, for example, or their legacy migration, or their data management, data integration effort, or their analytics data modeling effort, and get to something that runs, that they can see and touch and share with target customers or target prospects from their market much more quickly than they're used to being able to do. So that's one element. Time to market, time to knowledge is the way I would describe it. Being able to get to that point in feedback where you're testing your prediction against reality much more quickly than the waterfall method would allow.
Right.
CoreValue has been very helpful in that regard in several different formats. So, for example, with one client, our very first engagement was about rapidly prototyping a mobile application, their first mobile application, which was new technology for the client and an area that they needed to learn about from their market response. We were able to put that together very, very quickly and then use the feedback to drive into the whole web and user experience side of the business, as well as introducing them into the mobile channel. Another advantage, I think, is the ability to engage the client's own development organization. So this is not an either-or proposition. It's possible through this business transformation to embrace the current technology organization and help supercharge their effort. In a lot of cases, there are thought leaders within that organization that are frustrated, that would like to do things in an agile format, or would like to learn new technologies, would like to move into mobile and cloud and other current areas of interest for the technologist side of the house, but they don't know how to engage with the business to get there from here. So by bringing in this agile business concept, the global agile partnership with CoreValue, we can essentially involve them in the process, give them an important contributory role, and let them partner up. So it's not simply the traditional thought of the outsourced model. You know, we're going to cut out the internal resource, everything goes offshore. That's not the idea. The idea is the right tool for the right job and aligning business with technology. And very often it's more effective to get the internal tech organization aligned and empowered to be a strong contributor as opposed to a bystander in that process.
So, you know, as we kind of, and there's a lot there. You know, I can imagine that many organizations that are watching this, their heads are, you know, they're right on board with it. They are in sync with it, but they are probably grappling with, you know, how do we get started? You know, are there some recommendations or suggestions that you can provide individuals or organizations as they go from migrating from a traditional old approach from a business perspective, as well as it relates to the software development perspective, as they move from a business transformation to an agile business, now moving to a distributed global agile process? Or there's some things that you can actually share with them as things that they should be looking for as they move forward?
Yes, and that, again, there's a lot in that question. I think the answer depends on the perspective of the audience. So there's probably three general layers there. One would be the investment community, people with portfolio companies or companies that they've got a stake in that perhaps at a board membership level are interested in helping this organization improve and grow and become high performer, become a category leader. For those organizations, for the investment side, it's about engaging with the appropriate assistance. So in that case, I found very effective to work with investors to become introduced into the stakeholders of the organization, maybe the founders or maybe the C-suite, to talk about what are the current obstacles that face the business, what are the limiting factors to growth, to profitability, to the next round or to the big exit, those kinds of things. And it's possible to talk in those terms to figure out how to map the benefit of this global agile business methodology from the investor perspective. From the founder C-suite perspective, you're the CEO, you're the CFO, you're the CMO, you're the non-technical business leader that has responsibility and expects performance, maybe challenged, maybe even frustrated with the current state of affairs between technology and business within the organization. There again, it's a matter of engaging around the business problem to understand and assess. So in those cases, I've often done assessments for stakeholders, investors, to help size up what is the current state of affairs in the organization, the relationship between business and technology, the methodologies that are being used to transform the product roadmap into products, that sort of thing, as a starting point for the discussion at the C-suite level. And then there's the technology side of the house, the CIO, the CTO, the VP of engineering, those leaders who often find themselves in a kind of conundrum where there are demands being placed on them, expectations being placed on them that may be wildly unrealistic, but a matter of survival for the business. So what do? They're caught in this dilemma where on the technology side, they have thoughts and ideas about moving to Agile, moving to cloud, moving to new technologies. But because of the way the business is wired to think about requirements, to think about budgeting, they're stuck. And they may have the millstone of a major legacy system or systems around their neck that's eating up all of their resources that could be going into new emerging technology development. In that case, I think it's an opportunity for them to show leadership to the business, engage with the business, and talk about how agile as a business methodology can bring the parties together, can help give some new insight.
Hmm. Yeah.
All three have an opportunity to introduce these concepts to one another.
Right. That's certainly working with an organization like TechAzur, as well as being able to leverage a partner like CoreValue, can certainly help fast start them down that road to success. Um, so, very great insight, and I'm sure that we'll probably get a lot of feedback on that, because I know a lot of organizations, as you're very well aware, are going through this process as we speak. So, certainly, those are some great comments and things to share with organizations grappling with how best to go about this approach. So, is there anything else that you would be, that you can think of that you would like to share with the group regarding distributed global agile process as they kind of move down this kind of new evolutionary approach?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. One, uh, organizations, whatever your perspective or from whatever stakeholder position you may hold in these organizations, you shouldn't feel alone in the need for this kind of transformation. The reality is, if you look at the way organizations are run in North America, in Western Europe, and so forth, the majority of companies, be they established or be they startup, need to adopt this kind of global agile approach and need the assistance of global partners like TechAzur from the advisory perspective, like CoreValue from the capability and delivery perspective. And so often I find organizations struggling with these things kind of internally. It's not something you put on your website. We're having trouble organizing business. They attempt sort of family secret approach that says, why is it so hard for us to get our products out? It seems like it's easy for other people. I would say, first of all, just take the blinders off and recognize that this is a common state of affairs, because these are emerging methods, and lots of your compatriots in the professional space, whether you're on the finance side, the marketing side, the operational side, the tech side, are dealing with the same issue.
Mm.
So it's okay to talk about. It's okay to go ask and Google around and look for information. Uh, you know, be open-minded about taking on new solutions,
Right.
and recognize part of your responsibility as a leader in an organization. You need to challenge the status quo, and it's okay to be a change agent. So that's one element. Another element I'd say is it's important to find people you can trust to work with through that transformation. I think that one of the advantages that TechAzur can bring to that party is this collective of trusted partners, working tightly with organizations like CoreValue, who are a superb partner on global agile practice, can hugely accelerate the process, can get you through that kind of experimental stage into a comfort zone of operating that way quickly and cost effectively. So it's definitely something to look at sooner than later. And I'd say it's an open book in terms of being able to talk about and apply examples and case studies of how this has worked for others in potentially similar market segments.
Oh, well, those are some very good suggestions, and I'm sure that many organizations will are taking copious notes. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing your keen insight. And I also want to thank you for just the invaluable information that you shared with us today. And I'll tell you, I learned quite a bit, and I took a lot of notes. So I want to thank you for that, and also relating or talking a little bit about this whole movement toward this distributed global agile development process. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about these things. Obviously, it's a passion of mine.
You can tell.
And I thank my friends and colleagues at CoreValue as well. It's a great relationship, and we've got a lot of success ahead.
Well, good. With that, we will wrap this up, and I'm sure we'll make your information available to the audience so that they can reach out and contact you as they actually are going through this process of going through the business transformation and agile business and moving to this distributed global process. I'm sure that they could all leverage and utilize a talent like yourself in Tech-Azur. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you very much.